I think I'm going to read the Bitzalel speech again. L'chaim. No problem. So there's a Mashpia in Eretz Yisrael. His name is Rabbi Markel Tayyib. He's originally from France. So he explains, he writes, the difference between a Farbrengen and a Shaar. A Shaar, a lecture, a class, you prepare the class, with like a lesson plan, with a structure. There's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end. Like Bitzalel said, there's a milsa de bedichas in the beginning. Engage the students. It's a whole method, pedagogy. That's how a Shaar works. But he writes, it was in Chabad magazine, and they interviewed him, about Farbrengen and how he says, but a Farbrengen is totally different. Farbrengen, you really have to prepare yourself. So you have to get up in the morning, that you're going to Farbrengen, and you have to go to the mikveh, of course, and learn chassidus, and daven barichos, and learn for a couple of hours. So it's more about preparing yourself than it is preparing the specific material that you're going to share. So tonight, I don't have either of those milas. I didn't prepare like a Shaar, and I intended to get up and to try to appropriately prepare myself, but that didn't happen either. But I'll just share some thoughts or things that are in my head right now. And you'll excuse me if they're not necessarily in the most organized manner. So the first thought, I heard a story a couple weeks ago, but again this evening, more details, of a person who I know, who's not a Lubavitch chassid. And in fact, there were times that he was somewhat antagonistic. And as life moved on, in different circumstances, he found himself by the oil. This is the end of Tammuz, so it's a couple months ago at this point. Decided he was going to, it's time to ask Mechila from the Rebbe for certain things that he had done or said, or a certain way in which he had conducted himself. That was a story. The details aren't appropriate to share in a public setting, but the details are quite interesting. And it relates to, I'm somewhat involved in those details. And I was thinking to myself, when I'm listening to the story, and Chai Elul is upon us, the Gemara says, who is a fool? Someone who loses something which is given to him. Literally, it means if someone gives you something to hold and you lose it, you're a fool. But of course, the Chassidic interpretation is that is that we were given such a gift. We were given such a matana from the Eibishter. We have such a schus. And my father is Al-Gezintahait constantly reminds me that when I have a chance to sit and talk with him more and more. This nakuda. We have such a schus that we have a shaychus, we have a connection to chassidus, to the Rebbe. I'm thinking to myself, here's a person who recognizes he has to go to the Rebbe Pashut and have, develop a personal relationship with the Rebbe, take on a achlota. So for us chassidim, Chai Elul, it's time to reflect on our relationship, our yachas to the Rebbe. Are we in touch with the Rebbe through writing a letter, going to the oil, sending something to the oil, whichever way we choose? Are we shoitim? Are we fools? Are we giving up such a gift that the Eibusher gave us, that we have a shaykhus to the Rebbe and to limud hachasidus? Sometimes you read these stories in Kfar Chabad or wherever about people who are, undertook to begin learning Chassidus, Beshufi, also not necessarily Lubavitch Chassidim, others. Sometimes I ask myself, wow, what about me? How much am I learning? Am I as excited about this gift that the Eibusher gave me like these people who are found Chassidus for the first time? And so the Eibusher should help on Chai Elul. We should redouble our efforts to recognize the matana that each and every one of us have, and not squander the opportunities that are granted to us, both in relationship to the Rebbe and to Limud Chassidus. That's one point. Okay. Maybe connected, but there's a sikha from the Rebbe, Parshas Kisavai, where the Rebbe defines the mitzvah of halachta b'drachav, that we need to go in the paths, the ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Maybe the sikha is also connected with Parshas Vayelach. It's some Vayelach. So Vayelach is related to that point. The Rebbe's question in the sikha is, halachta b'drachav, the Rambam counts as one of the Tarek mitzvahs. Seemingly, it doesn't fit the Rambam's own rules for which of the mitzvahs are counted amongst the 613. Because seemingly, Valachta b'drachav is not instructing us anything new, anything additional to the 613 mitzvahs. It's an inyan klali. It's a general point, instruction, directive, but it's not telling us to do something specific. Based on the Rambam's own sharoshim, his own rules for defining mitzvahs, this wouldn't fit. So what's the mitzvah of halachta b'drachav? So the Rebbe's masbir that the idea of halachta b'drachav is that in performance of mitzvahs, we need to conduct ourselves in a manner of the halachta. We have to be passionate and inspired and growing and developing in whichever mitzvah or whichever area of our lives which we undertake. That's what the mitzvah of halachta b'drachav contributes or adds to stop the performance of the 613 mitzvahs. You can perform the mitzvah the same way year in, year out. You haven't yet fulfilled the directive of halachta b'drachav. Halachta b'drachav instructs us to grow and develop and to connect to that particular performance. This is a fundamental, that's why it's halachta b'drachav, it relates to all the mitzvahs. We find ourselves in very, very challenging times. The Rebbe would say the Welt Shakeltzach. So the Welt Shakeltzach, this past year, this past 6 months have been traumatic for mankind. Traumatic on numerous different levels. And in our work in chinuch, we're involved. Anyone who's involved in chinuch today, where there's no playbook for how you do this. It's like, I think about it sometimes, it's like being in a war, and it's being in the fog of war. And when you're in the fog of war, you don't have all the information. You don't have all the data to make decisions. So how do soldiers, officers make decisions when they're in the fog of war and they don't have enough information? They don't have enough data. So the answer is that each person has to develop or has core beliefs, things which we're passionate about, things which really define us. And those core beliefs really guide our actions when we don't have all the other details to make decisions. So you hope, if you're in a position, if you're a principal, you hope to give over those core beliefs and empower the people, the teachers who are working for you, to be able to also function based upon those core beliefs. But you have to have core beliefs that guide every decision which you make. The Valachta B'Drachav means that you have to be passionate and excited, and it has to be something which defines you. This is who I am. This is what's important to me. And for two different people, can be different people. There's might have a Zar Tzvei. Different people have different focuses, things that they're passionate, excited, and inspired about. No two people are alike. Yiddishkeit is broad, and there's a lot that we can do. There's a young man. He's not a young man. He's middle-aged, in his 60s. So that's 60s is like middle-aged. Or still a young man. His name, it's a public story. It's not his name is Nachum Markowitz. He's well known in Crown Heights because he organized the Simchas Torah Kiddushim. Everybody knows Nachum Markowitz, the big trucks, the refrigerated trucks. So when he was a bacher, he tried to learn, and he wasn't for him necessarily, and he got involved with this, that, the other. He couldn't find any sibuk. He couldn't find anything that inspired him. So he was at one of the Chiddush around his birthday, and he put it on the table. And he told the Rebbe clearly. He says, "Learning, I have no interest in. So what should I do? How can I be inspired? How can I, have a she'ifa, something which I look forward to?" So the Rebbe told him like this. The Rebbe said, "Learn 5 minutes every single day. No more. No more than 5 minutes. And then, mizman lizman, you should be moisef another minute." So Nachum Markowitz was actually a relative. He said there was a time after the Rebbe told him to learn 5 minutes a day that he was so careful to learn. A day didn't go by without him learning 5 minutes, that's for sure. But he also never learned more than 5 minutes. So sometimes he found himself in the middle of a Rashi or something, a Chumash or something, and he didn't finish the Rashi because the Rebbe told him 5 minutes, and now he finished his man. So it's over with. I'm not quite sure that's what the Rebbe meant or didn't mean. That's not the point. But he learned 5 minutes a day, and then I don't know how many minutes a day he's learning today. Maybe he's already up to 8 minutes a day. It's 40 years later. So maybe he's up to 10 minutes a day. But the bottom line is, there's a medrash which says that the king came into the town and he said, "You need a place to stay." So one of the Gevirim said, "I'll give you my house." He says, "I'm not looking for your house. I'm looking for one cheder, one room in your house. But that room should be totally mine. It's mine. It's not yours anymore. It's mine." Malachta B'Drachav means that we're passionate. We find an area in our lives, Limud HaTorah, Limud HaChassidus, in Hafotzas HaMayonos, in helping out the Moistus, whatever it is, but it becomes something which defines us. It becomes something, Valachta B'Dracha, which we're passionate and we keep on growing, and 1 minute at a time, one additional pu'ula at a time, one additional, and then our children are watching. Our children are learning and picking up. They're watching what's important to us. They're seeing what we're inspired about. I've had the opportunity to watch, fortunately, children who have gone off, either left the path for a period of time. But I've also, Baruch Hashem, seen some who have left and come back. What's fascinating to observe is even when they go off and they come back, you see the May Havazar Tzvei, what they're careful about and what they're passionate and excited about is many times what they saw their father passionate about and excited about. So if they saw their father careful with attending a minyan is important to them. If they saw their father careful Limud HaTorah is important because this area of our lives, which we're passionate, excited, Valachta B'Drachav, we're usually able to communicate to those around us that we're passionate about it, and these are our core beliefs. This is what I stand for, and that has an effect on our children, and anyone who's observing us. So the Eibusher should help. At Chai Elul is a special time. We shouldn't be shaitim, we shouldn't be fools to squander this opportunity to have a shaykhis to Chassidus, have a shaykhis to the Rebbe. And whatever each person in his own Aveda identifies areas of our lives that we're excited about, we're passionate about, we're committed to, and then we are fulfilling the mitzvah of Alach B'drachav, and collectively we will bring about this which the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe came to this world in order to fulfill the idea of Kishifutza Ma'nasecha Chutza, Ema Saika Simar, Kishifutza Ma'nasecha Chutza, Shetaka Bibim Her Yameinu.
Siva Bachnasi Motei Vavishonotei Vahomikosa 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 Siva Bachnasi Motei Shonotei Vahomikosa Siva Bachnasi Motei Vavishonotei Vahomikosa Siva Bachnasi Motei Vishonotei Vahomikosa Siva Bachnasi Motei Vavishonotei Vahomikosa Siva Bachnasi Motei Vavishonotei Vahomikosa Siva Bachnasi Motei Vavishonotei Vahomikosa Siva Bachnasi Motei Vishonotei Vahomikosa Siva Bachnasi Motei Vavishonotei Vahomikosa Siva Bachnasi Motei Vavishonotei